What's something attractive people can do that ugly people can't? Story 1 Male here. When I was fat, I just felt completely invisible. When I lost 80 pounds, I get warm smiles back whenever I greet strangers outside. Strangers randomly start convos with me, especially older folks. I have female friends now. Women now actually sometimes flirt with me when I visit bars/clubs. Gay men hit me up at the bar. I'm straight, but I guess I'll take it as a compliment. I actually lost some friendships being no longer the fat friend. Some extra context though. I also take much better care of my appearance. It helps to be able to finally buy clothes that fit well, and I carry the excess weight pretty poorly. All goes straight to my face, stomach, and butt, which is pretty terrible as a guy. Story 2. I was overweight for most of my life until I got cancer and lost about 90 pounds. I never had the experience of being chatted up by a stranger, in general, not just in a flirty way, though I went to bars alone often, was a big fan of dive bars with live music. After I went into remission, I started trying to live my life again. The very first thing I noticed is how much strangers suddenly wanted to talk to me. It actually made me nervous at first. I almost thought people were mocking me because it was just such a switch flip. Nothing about me other than my weight changed. My personality and sense of style didn't change. I'm skinnier, but knowing what I looked like before. I also look more sickly. It's not like I got hot, I just got thin. Meanwhile, one of my closest best friends was always skinny. She started taking antidepressants and gained weight, and she had the exact opposite experience I did. Suddenly nobody wanted to talk to her. Before, when we went to bars together, she'd get hit on and I'd get ignored. Now it's the opposite. It all strikes me as very unfair. She wasn't just skinnier than me, she's also more sociable and way funnier, but it doesn't matter because I almost died and that made my body smaller, and apparently that's more valuable somehow. I guess I should be glad that people want to talk to me now. But there's something humiliating about knowing people are only doing so because the worst experience in your life made an arbitrary physical change to your body. Story 3. Divorced dad here. When my kids were very young, I would often take them to parks on weekday mornings during my visitation. My ex would never allow me in whatever house she was living in. Due to distance, it wasn't just weekends, to play because they usually weren't very full or overcrowded. The first year I would often, but not always, get the stink eye or otherwise be watched closely by other moms that were there, which was uncomfortable. I hit the gym and diet and lost over 40 pounds and gained a 4-pack that winter as part of channeling my post-divorce energies into something productive. The next summer, the reactions I got taking my kids to the parks was much better. Not perfect, but noticeably more favorable. Story 4. I dated a girl that was a 9 easily. She actually had very little idea about her life being unusual. To her, it's normal to get free everything. She could go anywhere with zero problems. Police often didn't give her tickets. She loved to speed and litter. Seriously, we once got pulled over 3 times in one day. No ticket. She was often in the newspaper just because she was at an event or something, and the photographer would get her in the shot. Actually, people sometimes stopped her to ask for a photo. Once, she actually asked me to explain something to her. It was raining, and she ran up some stairs and paused at the top to shake the water out of her hair. It was at the doors of a restaurant. And people cheered. She accepted it as normal but started to think she'd never seen that happen to anyone else and wondered why. We went to a concert, and it was my favorite band. She asked if I wanted to meet them. I asked how? Oh, you just go to the stage and ask security. They get you a backstage pass, and you wait for them backstage. As if that's something everyone can do but choose not to. Story 5. I took my mom on a trip to NYC a few years ago. One of her bucket list things was visit the flagship Tiffany store. We were standing outside finishing a coffee, assuming we weren't allowed to bring drinks in, and one of the nicely dressed men came out to let us know we were more than welcome to come in with our coffee. When I tell you how mesmerizing handsome this man was. We proceeded to go in the turnstile door, and I couldn't look away. I mentally tried to tell myself to stop staring at him. The door stopped turning and I face planted so hard into that glass my mom peed her pants laughing so hard. When I finally got it together to get inside the store, there was a line of gorgeous men in suits just standing there, all asking if I was okay. I was 38 years old at the time. That still is top 3 of the prettiest human I've ever laid eyes on. Like nothing in my body communicating with each other. That's what happens when you encounter such beauty. Story 6. Preface: I am not a pretty woman, just TBH. My car battery died in a parking lot of a Starbucks and I had no phone and no way to call for a jump. I went into the Starbucks and asked for some help from several men, and they all said no, they don't have cables, and one guy just said, "No, I don't give people jumps." Okay, defeated. I go back to the parking lot and ask a woman, who happens to be really pretty, if she can jump me. She says she would, but she doesn't have cables. Let's go ask in Starbucks. I let her know no one did, but she looked at me reassuringly, saying, "Let's try." She walks in and asks the guy who bold-faced told me he doesn't give jumps. He instantly says yes. Then when he saw me behind her, he looked so unhappy. I'll never forget the feeling. Got my car jumped, though beautiful lady saved the day. Story 7. A few years back, a rather heavy-set, not very pretty girl started talking to me in a bar. At first it seemed innocent enough, so I was polite and cordial because that's just how you should treat people. I'm guessing she mistook my friendliness for flirting, because after a few minutes she said, "I just have one question." And then she put her hand on my face and said, "Is this seat taken?" I just turned and walked away, disgusted and kind of offended. However, if I'm being entirely honest, I almost certainly would have let her get away with it if she had been smoking hot. So that's one answer for you. Story 8. I'm not an attractive man as I'm pushing for it, but in the early 2000s as a college kid I believe I was considered fairly attractive in my school/area. I think I had a large advantage being a tall Pacific Islander in Nowhere, Ohio. Toss in a healthy dose of false charisma actually driven by a constant desire to be liked and popular, and a few random advantages I had. Discounts on food and drinks, constantly went out with friends if being served by a young or middle-aged female. I once somehow managed to get the TGIF waitress to bring our table chips and salsa when it wasn't even a menu item in exchange for a date. Being a male asked on dates. Lots of them. Back then social media was barely a thing, so exchanging numbers and texting was pretty much my regular routine, and it worked. Making clothes look good versus them making me look good. As I aged and my metabolism gave up on me while my eating habits stayed committed, I noticed this more and more. This is the only thing I miss. Now I'm trying to wear clothes that hide more than reveal. I promise I'm not gloating. I honestly regret how I acted because it taught me to be manipulative and selfish more than anything. Thankfully, my wife saw past my insecurities and has brought out the best me these past 15 years. Even if the best me is 45 pounds heavier,